Welcome back to Ready Take Live. Today we're going to talk about choosing the right camera for your next live production. Aubrey, are you ready?
Well, I don't know. Audio, are we ready?
I'm digging these animojis. Audio is ready.
All right, looks like we're ready to go. This is Ready Take Live.
Ready, graphic open in 3, 2, 1.
Graphic opens away.
Welcome to Ready Take Live, where today we're going to be talking about cameras. I'm your host, Rob Baynard, and I work as a live technical director and producer for LiveX in New York. And every week we do this show in 4K resolution live from LiveX Studios in Midtown Manhattan, just west of Times Square, where we're going to give you the latest in tech news and entertainment centered around live video. We're going to get you up to date with what's happening to help you bridge the gap between big budget broadcasts and live social streaming. Get notified each week by subscribing to @LiveX Production on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and we'll be answering your questions using the hashtag ReadyTakeLive. For the best viewing experience, subscribe to our YouTube page to watch in 4K. Our main topic tonight is cameras for live production, where we break down all the different options in our Ready Take segment. We're going to talk about some of the cameras we used on this show and why LiveX chose them for our studio. Aubrey Russell will be talking about ProRes recorders from video devices and Atomos, and you can learn about audio embedders and de-embedders from our resident audio engineer, Nick Nagurka. But first, let's find out what's going on in live media. All right, this week we had a busy week in live production and live streaming that kicked off with the engagement live stream of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. And this was brought to you by USA Today and on their livestream.com page, actually, that they embedded everywhere else. I am a huge fan of the Royals myself, and I'm really excited to see them finally get engaged and to have that experience, to share it with us all live on the internet. And I know Aubrey is also a big fan of the royal family, royal weddings, the royal babies, and all of that. So Aubrey, what'd you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was really cool. It was neat to see them to use live streaming as a way to broadcast themselves in this way. It's the beginning of the next generation of royals. It's the beginning of the next generation of how we view our content, and that is digitally. It was the actual engagement itself. She didn't really show off the ring very well or anything like that. I think she has, for being a movie or a television person, she doesn't seem to have the want for the celebrity part of it, which is fine. She doesn't have to, but you can hear the reporters, because that's about all you can hear on the live stream. They don't have any mics on the other side of the little canal that they have between them. And you can hear them say, show the ring, and she barely flashes it, and then they literally walk away and then walk around a group of trees and a fence and everything. So it was kind of anticlimactic in that way, but yeah, I thought it was a cool way to welcome in the new generation.
Yeah, I mean, typically these are very guarded, professional press releases from from Buckingham Palace. We don't get to see this moment in action. We would typically get a press release or something of that nature. It is nice to see that they live streamed the engagement event, even if they didn't quite ham it up for cameras. I'm sure that Meghan Markle has a lot of people trying to coach her image and stuff like that, although there's really no reason. She is a really great person, and the royal family can be very, very proud to have her join the family. So also this week, Aubrey, you wanted to talk a little bit about the Dancing with the Stars finale on Facebook Live.
Yeah, so we talked about it a couple weeks ago about how Dancing with the Stars wasn't really using their second screen anymore, and they came back with it. I bet they watched our show, and
I mean that must be the only reason. That really must be the only reason.
They heard that we had asked for this, and we were saying that they don't do it anymore, and they were like, "Wow, if Ready Take Live wants us to do this, we really should bring it back." So yeah, they brought it back. It was for a red carpet for their 2-episode finale finale, last week. So they did red carpet for both the first elimination the first night, and they talked to that couple, and then they did it for the second. Okay, well, so that was the second night, and then the next one is the first elimination. Yeah, Emma and Drew. So
I love Drew Scott, by the way. Like, I'm a Property Brothers nut. My wife and I watch it all the time, and I really enjoyed seeing him on Dancing with the Stars this year.
Yeah, he's very charming. But yeah, I liked they brought it back. It's easy. It's a one camera, one man, like man on the street. Easy mic straight into camera. It's very like more platforms more companies should be using their Facebook to do things like this. This isn't a big production. You already have the step and repeat for photographers. You might as well take it and use it to your advantage and be able to promote yourself more on social media. And I thought they did a really good job at that, at taking advantage of the situation and of the hype of the evening.
Yeah, I think, we were all really sad to see Dancing with the Stars second screen go away this season after they had done it for the previous couple of years. And it's nice to see they brought it back and to do a little bit of second screen and Facebook Live for these last two episodes. And I hope that they can reestablish the programming for next year to do a lot more with Facebook Live and YouTube Live and things of that nature, because it really does reach an audience that otherwise wouldn't be able to watch because maybe they're not at home or whatever. I know last year I watched some of it on the train, or even while sitting in airports, traveling around to different productions. So I was glad to see that they did a little second screen here for the finale, and I hope they continue that on to next season.
Yeah, and I'll say that LiveX is available if they want to do more of this. Just let us know. We'll come to LA.
Yeah.
I'll already know all of the people and from television. They obviously won't know me, but
we do have a lot of red carpet experience. I mean, I myself have done all the award show season for the Associated Press. I've done Grammys, SAG, Oscars, and People's Choice Awards on the red carpet. So yeah, if you're looking for somebody to handle all your red carpets, just give us a call. So Nagurka, our audio engineer, wanted to talk about HDMI 2.1, which is new this week.
Yes, it is. So after earlier this year, they released the initial specs for HDMI 2.1. They decided that this week that they would release the full specifications for 2.1, and it looks very promising. It's it's offering support for 8K 60 and 4K 120. It's going to be backwards compatible with existing HDMI 2.0. The only thing, though, is that it's going to be requiring a new ultra-high-speed HDMI cable. So I think that'll be interesting for folks who are looking to upgrade. I don't think we'll see much content yet for this new platform, but I think it's really going to be fantastic.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because it comes right on the heels of Blackmagic Design releasing some 8K products.
Oh, you're right, yeah.
And, we've seen some 8K cameras for a couple of years at NAB, even though they haven't quite come to fruition out to the regular consumer market. But we will see a lot more 8K products, not just from Red or, some of the highest end stuff, but I think 8K is coming to a lot of devices, as well as 8K televisions. I know NHK in Japan has been doing a lot with 8K broadcasts and 8K live. And SMPTE just established the 24G format for single link 8K SDI. So it's nice to see HDMI keeping step with the release of HDMI 2.1. For those of you who are confused over Nagurka's announcement that said ultra high speed cable supports HDMI 2.1, a lot of people have high speed cables that support HDMI 2.0.
Yep,
this
that's
is
right.
a new cable for ultra high speed, which is just a terrible consumer term that means absolutely nothing, but it does give us some indication that if you see ultra high speed on your cable, it will support 8K HDMI 2.1. High speed supports HDMI 2.0, which is 4K 60p. So keep an eye on your cables. A lot of legacy HDMI cables do not support 4K. So,
but it still does not have a locking feature. So.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things is that they really have an option on some cables that have a little screw device that's similar to DVI's, but that will lock the HDMI cable. But the problem is that almost no display manufacturer or recorder takes advantage of that feature, and so you don't see too many of those HDMI cables out there in the wild. I would like to see more of that. A lot of camera cages and stuff will have a locking mechanism for HDMI, but it's few and far between, and who wants to put an external metal cage around your camera just to be able to lock in your HDMI cable? And also what it really does is just stress the connector rather than lock it into place, because it just puts pressure on the connection point to keep it in step there. So I also wanted to highlight this week we had a huge round of announcements, a bunch of announcements from AWS in the AWS reInvent 2017 conference. This was live from Las Vegas, Nevada. They streamed almost everything live, all the keynotes. They even streamed all the workshops on Twitch, which are really cool. You can go check out. For those who really want to get into the code and the SDK stuff, you can go to Twitch and find all the AWS reInvent 2017 stuff. For those who just want more top-level, C-suite, general direction of Amazon Web Services, you can go to their YouTube page, also to the AWS reInvent website to check out some of these keynotes, which were really, really cool. You can see here, there's a lot of really cool projection mapping being done. I thought the production value was really, really good. Although, when they kicked it off with the Tuesday Night Live is what they called it, it was very interesting that they chose 8:30 p.m. Pacific time, I believe, to start their stream, which means it was 11:30 for those of us here in New York on the East Coast. A little late for a live stream, but also one of the funniest things, which we don't have footage of, unfortunately, but is they opened the show with a EDM DJ who was bouncing around and jamming to classic rock, of all things. It was very weird. They had her high up on a pedestal, and she was going crazy like any other EDM DJ to classic rock for all the gray hairs that were sitting in the audience. I thought that was just hilarious. And they opened on a medium shot of her and then moved on to, I was like, this is weird. Am I in the right place? I didn't know if I was watching the right stream or anything like that. So then and it seemed like almost that the music didn't match the way this EDM DJ was dancing. So anyway, and then they opened and showed the venue and showed the projection mapping and all of that. So I noticed on their recordings that they uploaded, they cut that part off, which I was a little disappointed of, because as I was watching it, I sent a note to our graphics op and I was like, hey, can you capture some of this? And immediately, as soon as it was over, it was gone. So we didn't get it, but hopefully somebody can find that and pull that up and maybe post it in the comments section or something below using the hashtag ReadyTakeLive, actually. Also interesting about AWS reInvent is that they live streamed all of the shows on their website. And as soon as it was done, it had a message saying the live stream has ended. A recording of this will be uploaded at a later time, which I think is pretty crazy. I mean, I know you're AWS, you specialize in live content delivery and stuff like that, and real-time, just-in-time packaging, all of that kind of stuff. But there was no VOD option with their live streams, and all of their and then you would click on a button that said previous recordings, and all of their previous recordings were actually coming off of YouTube, which is a big problem in my opinion. I mean, you are AWS, you compete with Google, and you compete with YouTube. So please, just load them somewhere on your backend so that you can play out your own content at least. I mean, I know you have Twitch, so you could have done it there, but interestingly enough, they felt like posting recordings to YouTube after the fact rather than using a DVR function in their streaming player was a better option. So that's what's going on in the world of live media. Now it's time to turn our attention to the latest technology for live production in a segment we call Ready Takes.
Hey!
Heyo!
Hey guys. So we're talking about cameras a lot today, obviously. So I'm going to talk to you guys about recorders because most of the time, what good is a camera if you're not actually recording what you're doing with it? So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the Pix 270i. So it's a video devices box that can be rack mountable or it can be a tabletop recorder. It's got frame rate converter, scaler, can generate time code. It is only 3G SDI and HDMI input, so it's not quite 4K yet, but I'm sure they're on their way. It's expandable, networkable, so you can have multiple of them linked together. They have a Ethernet-based or an Ethernet connection for it, like a web controller for them, so you can correspond with them through the computer as well. But they have such a large LCD display that you almost don't even have to. You can see these SATA drives. They lock in very nicely. The little screen right now, it folds down, and then these slide into two A and B slots right there. So we have a client that uses this for their program records. They record their individual cameras on an Apollo, but we really like this Pix 270i. It absolutely encompasses so many parts of the production. Because it's video devices and they are with sound devices, they really bring in the audio part of it. You've got this huge display, and you're able to see all of the audio meters on it when you select audio, and it's just very user-friendly. Yeah, that's not even all the audio meters. That's just what it looks like if you want to also look at your video. So yeah, all around, it's been a very, very trustworthy device to have, in our opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen these on a lot of shows over the past couple of years, and the Pix 270i really is the Cadillac of video recorders. I hope they release a 12G option so that we can add them into our productions, because right now we're just not in the business of buying anything that's not 12G. They can't support 4K because we've gotten a lot of calls for it, and obviously we've started to phase out all of our traditional HD stuff and move it into 4K. But my favorite features of the Pix 270 are that you can get all of your stems via Dante or Maddie and record 16 channels of stems up to the video as well, and you can arm and decide to disarm different channels as needed, and it's a great way to embed audio that's coming out of a hardware switcher that's in time, and not have to worry about having some sort of external embedder or something like that we're going to talk about later with Nick Nagurka, but we don't need to add in a separate embedder when we're working in a totally Dante or Maddie environment, which is basically how we've transitioned almost all of our shows. Dante is a much better format for dealing with audio than traditional analog copper, sending it over Ethernet, sending a bunch of channels. How many channels is it, Nagurka?
It's per link, I think it's about 64, but you can have a network with that. I think it has 1,024 channels per One Dante universe. It's fantastic. It's like the ability to decentralize, unlike Maddie, without needing an external router, I think is just so cool. And I love that the Pix 270 has both Dante and Maddie as parallel streams. It makes it such a versatile box, especially for the legacy equipment that's still around.
Yeah, so even though you can have access to 64 channels of audio, but you will need to select 16 channels to record them onto an SDI and also to send it back out via HDMI or SDI on the unit itself. This unit also supports analog audio similar to like the AJA recorders, but the KeyPros. But I think that video devices Pix are far superior to the KeyPros, and they give you a lot of features that you just don't get with any other recorder. Also, Aubrey, you have another recorder you want to talk about.
Yeah, so I want to talk about more of a run and gun style recorder, which is an Atomos product. It's the Atomos Shogun Flame. So that's what it looks like. It's in this beautiful, very rugged case that I feel like could, survive most apocalyptic events. It's got a huge LCD display. It can record in 4K, which is the only way to go. It's obviously 12G SDI, 4K P30 HDMI. It can be battery powered. It can be AC powered. It's got like everything on the screen that you could want. You got focus peaking, zebra, false color, safe area. You can do RGB parades, vector scopes. It's got 10 stops of been like I'm just listing because it's just got a list of good things going.
A lot of
for
good
it.
things. A lot of good
Just like
things.
a solid device, really. You stick it on the top of your camera with a little articulating arm. It's not heavy. Yeah, we have 3 of them, I think. We have 3
Yep,
of them.
3 of them.
And we use them all the time. They're extremely trustworthy. You just slide your drive right in the side. You can see it there. It's and that's me. You slide your drive right in the side of that. And yeah, we love the Atomos Shogun Flame.
Yeah. I mean, they came out with the HDMI 4K version, the Ninja, the Assassin, Ninja Assassin, and then they came out with the Shoguns. They offer it in both a quad link SDI format for 4K or a 12G option. Just go with the 12G option. It's going to make your life a lot easier having one cable. Also, my favorite features are that it takes Sony L-type batteries. Very convenient because a lot of people have these lying around. We also have it also has a DTAP connector, DTAP to LEMO pin. What we like to do with some of our Sony cameras, FS7, FS5, is use SWIP batteries that have a DTAP right out of the back. So that we can connect the power for this device from the same battery that's powering our camera. It makes it really convenient and easy, and you don't have to slap L-series batteries on the front of your monitor. Typically, you have your monitor in front of, like, near the lens while you're trying to operate. So adding more weight to the front of the camera is always a bad idea. So it's nice to be able to battery power it that way. Also, one thing to note with these is that you have to be very careful about what kind of SSD drives you get to go with it. It comes with SSD drive carriers, but you have to make sure you have a very fast SSD drive to be able to support the 4K 60p that the Shogun Flame will record. You'll notice if you use a slower one that you'll get some drop frames and you'll have some corruption, so keep an eye out for that. But it has a lot of other cool features like false color and peaking and other things that only would come in more DIT monitors from like Flanders or Sony or things like that. So yeah, we really love those, and let's move on to talk about audio embedders and de-embedders with Nick Nagurka.
Well, I'm just going to also add real quick, it comes in a very nice yellow box. So
I hate the yellow. I gotta say, I feel like we have all of our Pelicans are black. They all have nice LiveX black, white, and silver branding on them. And anytime we bring that Atomos yellow case, and you can't get it in any other color, it looks like we're going on a rescue mission. So I gotta say,
maybe we are rescuing someone from a bad recording, though.
Flame to
Hey-o.
the rescue.
I'm telling you, I keep telling Nagurka that we need to get a chingering in here so that we can get a little dudum-ch with our audio.
We could just get
terrible
Gurka a
humor on
snare
the show.
drum and just let him just hit it a couple times.
Yeah,
We know his
snare.
love for that.
We know he's got a huge love of snare drums. That's for sure.
Yes.
that snare drum. So Nagurka, take it away with audio embedders and de-embedders from Blackmagic and Telos.
All right. So yeah, I'm going to start with the Terranex mini series of embedders and de-embedders from Blackmagic Design. Things I love about them, they are 12G SDI, which makes it really easy to adapt to any workflow we're doing. They have XLR line inputs, AES inputs on XLR3, or AES3 inputs on XLR, which is fantastic because there's not a whole lot of time that we're going to be using unbalanced AES connections like many broadcast trucks might be using. They've got RCA inputs. Yeah, they've got RCA inputs. They've got optical inputs, and they're great. They're rock solid. I have to say, I've got a pair right in front of me. The things that I have a little bit of a problem with are the dip switches. I think they're a little bit finicky once they travel. Sometimes settings change. That's easily remedied when you add the Blackmagic Smart Panel, which is $80. You can throw it on any Terranex device. It's fantastic. It allows you to verify your settings. You can have meters. You can select which channels you're going to embed or de-embed, it's wonderful. I think it just adds a whole huge level of usability to the device.
Yeah, it does. I mean, my thing about these is I like these. Obviously, they're standard audio embedders, de-embedders. But anytime I'm in a hardware switcher environment where I'm just accepting a feed from front of house and switching for screens and out for broadcast, out to like an external encoder that's just an encoder. It's not really like a full-featured software switcher like vMix, Livestream Studio, TriCaster, something like that. Is that, I can use the smart panel to fade audio up and down, where, when we're starting the show, when I'm coming off of slate and going to cameras, without this smart panel on the audio to SDI embedders, you don't have that option. So I really like and also you can set which channels audio goes onto. So for instance, on Monday and Tuesday, we're doing a show that has both Spanish and English translation feeds, and we need to separate out which channels get what. So it's really nice on the smart panel to be able to make those adjustments without having to worry about going into a software interface, using a laptop, or using the dip switches, which I don't know about you, Nagurka, but quite often those dip switches don't do anything, and you got to go in through the software anyway.
I think I've had enough of the dip switches. I think from now on we'll be using the smart panel if we can swing it. There have been a number of times where it's like you just open up you fire up the box and it's expecting AES, or it's embedding on channels 13 and 14 for whatever reason.
Yes.
Like, why? And then especially if they're racked, they have this fantastic rack because they're 1/3 rack space. Or width rather.
Right. So you can fit 3 of them across a 1 RU shelf.
In the key that corresponds to the dip switches is on the bottom of the unit. So if they're racked, you can't see it. So I got to go onto my computer and look up the manual because I don't have that kind of a brain. It's just a little bit too much for me.
Yeah.
A lot of other embedders and de-embedders have a key right on top of or in front of the unit. I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, there are not many good options at this price point other than the Terranex devices. So we really like them. We use them on almost every show, and they are a good choice for those of you looking for an easy way to embed audio outside of the camera itself and get it into your production from via the switcher and the audio board. So also this week you wanted to talk about Telos and a different type of audio embedder, de-embedder.
Yes, the device I've been waiting for from my tenure beginning at LiveX is the Telos Alliance SDI X node, which is fantastic as a concept. I think it allows you to take 2 SDI streams and embed or de-embed 8 channels from that 16-channel SDI stream to AES-67. Its native format is Livewire, which I think is really popular amongst the corporate crowd or in radio. We don't use Livewire, we use Dante, but Dante is AES-67 compatible, so I think that's killing. So I'm very excited about the idea for that.
Yeah, I know like Livewire is used by a lot of old media and radio and internet radio as well. And they tell me over at Sirius that all you need is a box with a button. And this is that box with a button that you need. For some reason, it costs $6,000 or something like that.
Yeah, it's a little hefty of a buy-in.
You're starting to sound crusty, Rob.
Yeah.
Box with a button.
Yeah, they told me at Sirius, all you need is a box with a button, and then they nail it up on their board, and then they, somehow pull it down off of that nail on their board, and then broadcast it out from there. They really have no clue how to describe it technically. I was like, what format do you need? What codec? Whatever. I had to drill down into the documentation myself to figure out what to do. But this is one of those devices. Obviously, Telos is probably the most popular company for taking and phone calls into your live production, and so they've done a lot of really good things with VoIP, audio over IP, and stuff like that to make this possible. And if you're looking for the most reliable audio over IP embedder, de-embedder, this is a good option, even though it does come with a hefty price point.
Certainly.
I think it's a good option.
I think it represents a really, really good movement towards being able to move audio around from SDI streams very fluidly to IP-related workflows. I'm just still waiting for that box that lets me like take in 8 or 16 SDI streams and fly it into Dante. That hasn't happened yet at a price point that I would be convinced at. I mean, there's certainly some really cool boxes coming out from like Solid State Logic, who make fantastic consoles, and what's
Anchor.
NTP is another one. I think a Danish company. Am I saying that right? I may be wrong.
Yep.
And Junger as well, who makes fantastic broadcast processors, but they all cost a lot of money.
Yeah, I know that Solid State Logic. I think you can do 16 SDI channels on it, but it's only 3G SDI, and it does cost $16,000, which is
a grand a channel.
Yeah, a grand a channel, not bad, but at the same time, you really are just embedding and de-embedding audio. And if you look at the price difference, it's a real pain to be able to add that many embedders and de-embedders and stuff like that to make this possible. But if you're just looking at what you need for your typical live production, that may be a little out of your price point. But if you're in a control room environment and you are at a broadcast station or something like that, and you really have that use, those are really good options as well.
And I think once we move to IP routing as well, we won't see the need for these boxes anymore, where audio will just be connected to your IP router. And I think that's really going to be fantastic. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, certainly once we all go to audio and video IP routing, this will all become much easier. But right now, we're still on baseband for a lot of our video. Audio has gone over to IP for most of the stuff that we see come out. And we're seeing a good marriage from a lot of these companies between baseband video and audio over IP. And I think that will continue for at least another year or two before we see a full transition over to IP and entirely IP workflows, which will make our lives much easier. But right now, the technology just isn't there, or it isn't there at the price point we would like it. So I really wanted to talk this week in our Ready Take segment about the cameras that we use in our show. We use the Ursa Mini Pro 4.6K cameras for the main cameras that you see here in the studio, and the Micro Studio camera 4K from Blackmagic for our POV, which you can see up here, and also our cameras on Aubrey and Agurka. Oh, real quick, before we cut over to those cameras, I'll just walk you through some of the features that we see here on the side of the camera. So the original Ursa Mini Pro did not have all of this, if you can imagine that. There was nothing on this panel at all. It was just a paddle that came out and showed you the screen. You can see a lot of controls over here that we've upgraded to, as well as these controls over here, which make the operating features much more reliable. ISO, shutter, white balance. You have iris and D filters right here on the front, accessible. It's a really good versatile camera for almost any production. But one of the things that I really want to focus on is how this camera is used in live production. So we have paired these cameras and the Ursa Mini Studio the Micro Studio cameras, sorry, not the Ursa Mini, but the Micro Studio cameras with our ATEM Production Studio 4K broadcast panel. And what that gives us is full customization inside of ATEM itself. You can see right here, we have the studio viewfinders. We have those on our cameras here in the studio, on the cameras that aren't on our Vantage robotic heads, because they're a little bit heavy for the Vantage stuff. But we obviously really like the Ursa Minis because of its Super 35 millimeter sensor, as well as the Canon EF mount. And the biggest thing about working with ATEM and the Ursa Mini Pro cameras, as well as the Micro Studio cameras, is that we can control both color and iris and focus and things of that nature directly on the ATEM itself. So the TD sitting in the back, Aubrey in this case, can control focus and iris and color. One of the coolest things is that as opposed to a traditional RCP CCU camera control unit paint box situation that you would find on some of the larger broadcast cameras with SMPTE fiber and Triax and things of that nature, these cameras work totally off of an SDI return that gives it data and program return to allow it to change the color of the image sensor itself through DaVinci Resolve color wheels. And we actually have a DaVinci micro panel right above the switcher panel where Aubrey can control color, lift, gamma, gain, saturation, contrast, hue, things of that nature that make it a really, really versatile option for live production. Something that I haven't seen.
Just to give you guys an idea,
Yeah.
I just have to go like this and I can change all of the colors in the 3 cameras that we have.
Yeah.
It's really easy.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really, really easy, and it's really accessible for anyone who's operating with ATEM. Definitely Ursa Mini Pro is the only camera on the market that supplies a 12G SDI 4K 60p stream directly out of the back of the camera. A lot of people would poo-poo Ursa Mini Pro cameras and say like that, oh, Red or Arri is better, or whatever, especially a lot of commercial and film DPs. But the thing is that without a broadcast module, which is quad link on the back of a Red camera, which costs an additional, I think, $6,000 or so or whatever, you cannot get 4K out of the camera on an SDI signal, and you have to do it on a quad link on a Red camera. You can't do it over a single stream SDI cable that's running 12G. So we really like the Ursa Mini Pros because who wants to run 4 cables to their cameras when you only need to run 1? Very, very cool option there, and we really like it. The Super 35 sensor is amazing. And pairing it with really nice Canon glass allows you to have full control. The one thing I will note is that the Ursa Mini Pros do not allow any kind of servo control with ATEM. Even though that functionality is built inside of ATEM, we're waiting on a camera update to come out that will allow the servo control directly from ATEM, which Blackmagic is slow to do, but they have recently focused a little bit on camera firmware. Those of you who know the Blackmagic system will know that Blackmagic releases a camera update, which is for all their cameras, including the old Ursa Mini, as well as the Ursa Mini Pro, as well as the Micro Studio camera. Last week, we saw them release an update to their Micro Studio cameras that gave the camera 2 stops of dynamic range. That was really big, and one of the things that we saw when this camera first came out was that it was very dark in nature. We had to find fast glass. It's very difficult to find fast glass for Micro Four Thirds. This is a Micro Four Thirds sensor, and especially at a wide angle, it's very difficult to find fast glass for it. So we were very excited when Blackmagic released last week an update that added 2 more stops of brightness, or ISO sensitivity, whatever you want to call it. I will say that ISO sensitivity in general with both of these cameras is the one knock that it has. But if you're like us that work in a live environment most often and have a lot of light, it's fine. I will also add that the original Ursa Mini had a lot of fixed pattern noise and really bad high ISO performance. If you went beyond like ISO 400, for instance, you would see a considerable gradation in the image, a lot of noise. And they had this fixed pattern noise image where you get horizontal lines through the image, which was not cool. But really, what we like to see is this camera has resolved all of those issues, and we don't have that problem anymore. We can go all the way up to 1600 and beyond without any noise issues and stuff like that. So They are really great for live production, and most people don't think of them that way. And at that price point, you can afford a few more than you can with Red or Arri. So if you're looking for a large sensor camera for your live production and you're already an ATEM user, I would highly recommend the Ursa Mini Pro 4.6K. And yeah, I mean, that's it. You know, that's what we got for Ready Takes this week. And we're going to dive more into detail on cameras in our in-depth segment coming up. But I forgot to mention that this week in our What's Going On segment, that NBC New York live streamed the tree lighting ceremony from Rockefeller Center. And that reminds me of this moment in LiveX history where we take you back to last year's holiday season, where we helped Hallmark Channel with a holiday projection on the South Street Seaport in Lower Manhattan. Check this out. Pretty cool stuff. Shout out to Brandon Epperson, our creative director, who made that come to life. Welcome back to Ready Take Live. I'm Rob Baynard, and this week we go in depth into the science of cameras and how to choose the right camera for your next production. This is RTL In Depth, and we post this segment out of the live show each week as a standalone feature, so if you want to go deep on broadcast and streaming technology, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page and sign up for the LiveX producer blog, where you can find a written article of our in-depth segment each week. We'll also feature it in our newsletters. So let's get right into it. Choosing a camera. Choosing a camera that's right for you may be the most important decision a production company makes each year, but most people don't consider all the options and just go with the latest hype beast to hit the market. Did you see that new Canon? What about that Panasonic? Well, you know, I'm a Sony guy at heart, but I really like what we can do with the Blackmagic and ATEM for live. And then there are the film and commercial DPs that wouldn't be caught dead without anything but a Red or an Arri camera in their hands. But can your client afford maybe 3, 5, or even 7 of those high-end cinema cameras for multi-camera live production? Most would say no. Even the great Hamish Hamilton, my idol, had to mix Arri Alexa and the Canon C300 cameras for the Victoria's Secret fashion shows. The main point here is that there are different tools for different jobs, and it's like when I was a photojournalist and people would say, what's better, Nikon or Canon? I'd always say neither, they're all just tools. With so many high-quality cameras on the market, you can't really make a bad purchase. Nearly every camera gives you a decent image, and like it was in the film days, a camera at its core should just be a light-tight box with a shutter in it. Everything else that comes on a camera are ancillary tools to help make your production easier. So you can't make a bad purchase, but you can make the wrong choice. There is no silver bullet in this case. Cameras are a lot like people on a production crew. No one can be the best at everything, and each department has its role and specific job duties that they perform really, really well. But everyone on a seasoned crew can slide into other roles and perform adequately. That's how we build our crews here at LiveX and what we tend to look for in our cameras. What can we pick up and go shoot an interview, a concert, a sporting event, or a fashion show? What fits the best combination of features and lens options to give us the versatility and to provide our clients with the quality and professionalism they come to expect from LiveX? And what can we own in-house that will also allow us to offer 2 or 3 cameras given a client's budget, where they would normally only be able to afford 1? Regardless of how good your camera is, having more than one is better. Live shows can get pretty boring from just one camera angle. Even an iPhone can be the right choice for certain projects, and we sent our producer, Nick McCosey, to MojoCon, the mobile journalism conference this year in Ireland, and he live-streamed panel discussions and interviews using multiple iPhones outfitted with special wide, medium, and telephoto lenses, and switched wirelessly with Teradek's Live-to-Air product on an iPad. This was a case study project sponsored by Teradek, and we were super happy to help them push the boundaries and reimagine what multi-camera production can be with mobile phones. The quality was incredible, and after it was compressed down in the live stream, no one watching could tell that the cameras were just iPhones. Popular cameras today have different sensors that produce very different results due to their size and lens options. Before we get into these differences, let's take a step back and look at how a camera and lens turn light into data. Light enters the front of the lens and travels through different lens elements that focus light rays onto elements in the sensor. Front elements have special coatings to prevent flares and ghosting in the image, and some lenses even have special apo elements that increase sharpness and reduce chromatic aberrations. Floating glass elements and image stabilization motors help keep the lens stable when handheld or moving environments. Eventually, light exits the real element at the image circle and lands on the sensor, and the sensor is electronically charged when photons hit its surface. Then that charge is recorded and interpolated by the camera's image processor to come up with red, green, and blue values that will approximate out the color for each scene. The more common sensors today are CMOS sensors, which stand for complementary metal oxide semiconductors. Now, there's a different set of camera sensors known as CCD, or charge coupled devices. CCD sensors are known for their sharpness and exceptional performance, but they're very costly to make, and as a result have largely been abandoned in terms of manufacturing, but also, more importantly, in technical advancement. CCD sensors can be found in many high-end broadcast cameras, and they were also a staple to high-end medium format cameras for photography from Hasselblad, Leaf, and Phase 1. CMOS sensors, on the other hand, are much cheaper to make and have been the focus of development for many manufacturers to offer exceptional image quality at a lower price point. Initially, they were not as good, but today's CMOS sensors combined with advanced image processors have become the standard for both cinema and broadcast applications alike. Even the highest resolution imaging sensors on the market from Hasselblad and Phase 1 have converted over to using CMOS sensors. But enough about that. Let's talk about the different sensors available and how they contribute to the image on screen. Broadcast cameras are known for their accuracy, reliability, and superior in-camera manipulation. They typically have smaller sensors of 2/3 inch, and some prosumer cameras have 1/2 inch sensor varieties. This provides a wide depth of field when all that matters is getting the shot in a live environment. They're extremely forgiving, and the ability to control camera color and iris remotely from an RCP paint box and camera control unit. Even cameras without a camera control unit option have an almost infinite amount of adjustment in camera to the color matrix, color depth, phase, crispening, detail, etc. You get the idea. Larger sensor cameras that come in varieties of Micro Four Thirds, APS-C, or Super 35 cameras like you see here in this show, and full-frame sensors are much larger by comparison. Micro Four Thirds at one time were thought to be the healthy balance between cinema's common Super 35 format and broadcast 2/3 inch format because they combined the characteristics of both in a way that reproduced an image much more akin to the Super 16 frame size that was so popular for so many television programs before digital cameras became ubiquitous. The smaller sensors have a much wider depth of field, keeping more of the image in focus. They also allow smaller focal length lenses to reach longer distances. Larger image sensors need much larger lenses to fill the sensor with more light, meaning to achieve the same shallow depth of field with a smaller sensor, you need to be much further away. If your show is more of an interview style or SMT talking head, straight to camera, you might be better off choosing a larger sensor camera like we did on this show, with a more shallow depth of field to give more cinematic or emotional feel. But if your show has a lot of movement or is in a venue that needs long throw lenses, you will drive yourself crazy trying to use a large sensor camera. Large sensor cameras can produce the best image if you can keep your talent still and choose where to put the cameras. Like this like this shot in particular, is achieved by using an Ursa Mini Pro 4.6K camera with a Super 35 sensor and a Canon 85mm f1.2 lens at f1.2, which is why you see the shallow area of focus and everything else blurred into the background for a cinematic gauze that appeals to the eye more than if everything was in focus. But for most of us in live productions, we don't have that luxury of our talent staying put, like me. Using a broadcast camera that's built with servo zooms and standard long lens options, focus and zoom controls on the panhandle for the operator, and often even autofocus options for sports are much more reliable and effective for capturing the action of live entertainment, product launches, or sporting events where you need that versatility and flexibility. For most of us, that means choosing a camera with a smaller sensor, and the 2/3 inch or 1/2 inch variety is a much better choice for all-around live production. For example, on our biggest production each year, the official worldwide webcasts for New Year's Eve in Times Square, we rely on the Sony HTC line of cameras. These give us the maximum flexibility and reliability on a night where nothing can be missed. But these are big cameras, and not easy enough for our handheld field teams to run around and capture all of our Reveler interviews. So for that, we choose, again, a smaller sensor camera, but in a more compact form. The Sony PMW300 gives us a nice image that can match up well enough with our higher-end HTCs, but they give our field teams the flexibility to move around among the crowds and capture special moments throughout the 6-hour broadcast with little strain on their shoulders, like they would have with the large cameras. But for our behind-the-scenes footage and special packages, we rely on larger sensor cameras for a more cinematic feel with Super 35 cameras from Red and Sony, and these give our BTS and special packages an extra element of polish, which are then edited in post so we can always shoot multiple takes of something if our shooter misses focus when we're trying a complex move or a unique shot. Now, not every client or show has the budget to afford a lot of cameras and operators, and some even prefer to keep the operators out of the environment so as not to disturb the scene. This leads us to our last category of cameras we're going to talk about, which are PTZ or robotic cameras. PTZ cameras give us the unique flexibility of having multiple cameras with only one operator. And also they can be controlled remotely, so you don't have to have operators in the room that can be distracting to your live audience or talent. This is a good approach. We've used PTZ cameras on the Vergecast Live at CES 2017 on Twitter, where we wanted to add 3 extra cameras run by 1 operator to our traditional Sony cameras run by 2 operators. These gave us 5 cameras with 3 operators.
Is that what that math is, Rob?
Yeah, I think so.
5
Is that right?
cameras, 3 operators.
Yeah,
How
I
many?
mean, I can't exactly tell, but I think there were 5 cameras, 3 operators, where you would normally need 5 operators for 5 cameras. So PTZs were a good choice there. So that allowed us to save the client costs while still giving us adequate coverage as the official Twitter coverage of the Consumer Electronics Show hosted by The Verge. We've used PTZ cameras with clients like Warner Music Group, Eileen Fisher, and the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center's Cancer Smart series. They're a great option for adding multiple cameras where you don't want the expense or imposing bodies of having multiple operators manning traditional broadcast cameras. These are all good approaches. But the most important thing to do when deciding what cameras to buy or what cameras to use on any given production is to truly evaluate what your specific production needs are for both your clients and the space that you most often will be working in. Ask your clients what they're trying to do and help guide them to making the right decision by giving them the right options, then laying out all the pros and cons of each camera system. At the end of the day, we're here to service our clients with not only the best possible show, but also to choose the best of breed cameras based on evaluative costs and operation needs. There is no one size fits all, and despite advancements in camera technology and the hype machine of YouTube reviewers and camera manufacturers, you have to block out all the noise and make the right decision for your specific production needs. That's all the time we have for this week's Ready Take Live. I hope you enjoyed the show. And if you want to be notified when we go live, hit the like button on our Facebook page, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch Ready Take Live in 4K resolution each week. And don't forget, you can send your questions and comments to using the hashtag ReadyTakeLive, and we'll be sure to answer them. We're off next week to pay the bills with a lot of big productions we have in the pipeline, but we'll be back the following Friday on December 15th with a special end of the year episode where we count down some of the best moments in live media and broadcast technology. Big thanks to our founder, Corey Banke, who's watching this show from our Green Bay location, and LiveX Studios in Manhattan for hosting this show. And as always, I'd like to thank everyone in the back, Aubrey, Nagurka, Walsh, Anna, Gaff, everyone who's working on this show for making it possible. And for Ready Take Live, I'm Rob Baynard, wishing you a very happy holiday season and best of luck on your next live production. Take care, guys.
Take me away from